Welcome to the Eagle Talk Show Uncut, where conversations soar above the ordinary. Hosted by Mengistu Wolopoli, aka the Black Eagle, and the insightful Wilfred Duosi. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to ku-wor TV. Thank you for tuning into the Eagle Talk Show Uncut, and it starts now.
Well, folks, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Liberians, and those of you watching around the world. This is the program ku-wor Show, and of course, it's on ku-wor TV, both on YouTube and on channel. Today, we are privileged to have with us former representative of District Number 1, Moserado County, Dr. Kettehkumuehn Murray. And of course, we're going to have a lengthy conversation as it relates to Liberia's social, political, and religious sector. My name is Wil Wilfred Duosi. I'd like to urge you to keep following. Please share and like our page. And also, you can leave your comment on our presentation so as to hear what you have to say concerning his view about Liberia in different sectors. Again, welcome to it, Dr. Murray. Welcome. And this is ku-wor TV. It has been a while. And how is it? How is life after leaving the House of Legislature?
The same as it was before going into the legislature. No one should make himself or herself a political, politics as a career or as a vocation. According to Aristotle, according to Plato, and according to our ancestors who still practice the old ways, one should serve his community. And one should earn his living by the sweat of his brow. And each of us is capable of going into service. That is why it is said civil servants. So we are civil servants. When the president, the chief justice, the speaker, every single person who serves in the government is a public servant. And after that, he should return to his private life and perform functions in the interests of his own community, his family, himself, and the nation.
Well, do you miss the House of Legislature since you left? Do you miss the House?
Well, no more than I missed teaching. I'm a teacher by profession. And my mother put me in the classroom to teach from the age of 16. Before that, from the age of 12, I used to teach my friends at home after school on Saturdays. So I miss it, not any more than I miss other things I've done.
Well, you are in Liberia, you've been in Liberia, and of course, we move into our major discussion. Let us look at the social aspect, Liberia culture. Liberians as a whole. Nowadays, you see people talking about homosexuality and a lot of stuff. And the culture of Liberia, does it call for these things?
Liberian culture is stagnant, but it's also changing. What do I mean? I mean, Liberia has a unique, specialized culture, but it is out of the West African culture that we find ourselves. We trace ourselves all the way back to the Mende group, all of us, which is a branch of the Niger Congo group, which go back 25, 30, 40, 50,000 years. The Mende group specifically goes back to about 5,000 years, where all the existing tribes in Liberia now are different branches from that same root. In respect to the specific question of homosexuality. I don't know any indigenous group that permits, tolerates, or celebrates it. So I think it's different, it's alien, but people have learned strange and good things from the Western culture, and they've also learned some things which are alien to our own culture from the Western culture. I personally don't see how it can jive or it can synchronize with our African roots. However, people like it, and I'm not someone to go into.
But do you think Liberian as a whole, looking at our native culture, do you think we should miss Western culture among our belief, among our tradition?
But the very language that we speak is Western, so we cannot really isolate ourselves completely from the Western culture. The field which is in the background is a Western construct and a Western contribution to civilization, of course, built on the original African scientific speculation. So we cannot divorce ourselves completely, but in respect to the specific practice of homosexualism or lesbianism, I think it's strange, and I don't see any place for it, at least in my lifetime, that we will embrace it. I don't know whether it's a medical thing, it's a social lifestyle, or what it is.
Someone must say it is a human right stuff. Human right. Human has the right to do what they want to do, so they can also adapt the homoality.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't know whether I personally can endorse that, because there's something in me that makes me a man, and I don't think it's a choice of whether or not I will be a man or not. But if others choose to be other than men or women, I think that should be left with their families. That should be left with the church or mosque or the sacred grove, as in case of us who are African practitioners, and not for me to go into the bedroom to tell them what to do, what not to do. I just think it should be prescribed. That is prohibited by law. As it is already in the book, homosexuality is called sodomy. Sodomy is forbidden by Liberian law.
Well, Liberia now is part of have adapted different culture. Where do you see Liberia in the social aspect of life? Where do you see Liberia culture?
I see most Liberians continuing to remain traditional in terms of marriage and those kinds of relationships. Those who wish to practice outside of marriage or wish to have alternative lifestyles, as I said, it is not going to be entertained or welcomed by the current generation. Perhaps in the future, where people now can go and turn themselves into women, they can have surgeries to create testicular appendages, or they can remove the natural scrotum and appendages and create vagina in its place. All you have to do is to go online and Google it. You see all these things going on. It's just too advanced for me, if you call that advancement. We've been living for thousands of years. At least the oldest woman who created all of mankind has been in existence from 250,000 years ago, the primordial Adam and Eve from Africa, and we have been going by man and woman getting together, marrying and producing children. if there's going to be a new gender, and there are a lot of gender, transgender, and all of that, if there's going to be that, I would not be a part of that show.
What role the government should play as it relates to promoting the culture of this country?
Well, the government can only do what the people want. So if in the future there are majority or enough pressure or interest group which would say you should countenance other genders other than male, female, go by that. I think that is what forced Barack Obama to sign. Before him, it was Clinton. Clinton was don't ask, don't tell. Before then, Bush and others, it was prohibited to be a homosexual or lesbian in American army. But when the majority of society found it permissible or acceptable, they had no choice but to go by what the government wanted.
How can we promote our culture in other Western nations? How can Liberia and probably Africa also promote their culture in the Western nations?
I don't know whether you need to promote your culture. Once it is attractive, people will follow you.
Okay.
There are restaurants now in Texas, in Las Vegas, in New York by Nigerian, Ethiopian, Somalian cooks and chefs, where different people are going to from different people, different places around the world and eating. In England, in London, you have Caribbean restaurants there. Etta Foods, one of the persons from the Windrush generation who came to England from Jamaica, she has a very, very popular international place.
Okay.
And she's identified as African diasporan. So your culture will serve. It will show itself. If it is good, people will attract themselves to it. If it's not good, people will ignore you.
Okay. Now, religiously, Liberia, people would say Liberia is built on a Christian principle. Today, there have been several debates that Liberia is a Christian nation. Liberia is a Christian nation. Others are saying no, Liberia is not, and this and that. Doctor and former representative, do you see a fair religious practice from Christians, Muslims, and other religions in Liberia?
Well, the oldest religion which has been in Liberia is not Christianity, no Islam, but African traditional practices, which is what I adhere to, i.e., the use of your ancestors as the intermediaries between you and the Great Spirit. Now, Christianity came with a lot of force. It came through the settlers or pioneers or immigrants or repatriates, if you want to use Dr. Carl Patrick Burroughs' words. They came back and they propagated Christianity, which is an Abrahamic faith. But before they came back, Islam had been here. You go to Swam Mecca, you see that Islam had come here and try to posit itself here. But Islam used a lot of force, a lot of intimidation, a lot of threat. And you see people talk about, if you accept Christ, you will not be condemned. If you accept Islam, you will not be condemned. If you don't, you will go to hell. You will burn in hell forever and ever. Those are intimidation. And where you have a very strong culture, you have guns, you seem to have advanced cultural items. The ordinary people, those who were basically primitives, they accepted your religion. We've understood now that Christianity doesn't save anybody. Christianity only confuses you because it tells you you have one God, but then you got three gods.
Mm-hmm.
And the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, three in one. So mathematically it's confusing. Do you have three gods or do you have one God? If you have one God, this God was killed, and this God also being killed, if he's one, was calling to his Father not to forget about him when he was on the cross. So all this is convolution, but you know, religion doesn't call for serious thinking and analysis. I, who am a professor of philosophy, I had to take it seriously because you're talking about your life not only in the here and now, but in the year after. And I saw that Christianity was not tenable. When I went to Senegal, where I was teaching, sometimes in the 90s, I asked the people at Yoff how they embraced Islam and rejected a very great faith, which is the veneration by the Lebu of Manjara Buso. And they said they brought over 50,000 troops with guns and horses and camels and said, if we did not accept what they had done to one of the men, they had skinned a man alive. Said they were going to attack the whole Yoff. The place is called Yoff. And they will force them, and that's how they accepted. Once the king or the chief or the elder accepts Islam, then it's assumed everybody is accepted, and that's how they got converted by force.
But Christianity and probably people will say Muslim, they also pave the way for heaven and also bring you to hell. Based on your life, how you live your life, how you follow the Bible, it also saves you.
There's no hell.
It also saves you.
Hell is a construct of a demonic mind. If you look at Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, there was nothing like hell. Hell only came in 550 after the Babylonian exile, and they encounter the Zoroastrian religion, which had hell and heaven and good and evil and whatnot. But before that, you say Abraham died and his bones were gathered with his people. Nobody talk about going to hell or heaven. It's a recent phenomenon. Religions grow. So they got that from Babylonian or from the Persian, because Ahura Musa was a Persian prophet.
What role religious grouping should play in national development?
Well, they should serve as the mirror of society's soul, and they should be able to tell you what is right or wrong. But most of these political people are also the religious people. 99% of the people who are causing all this trouble in the house are all Christians who go to church on Sunday. And they're the ones who are gouging the treasury and paying themselves this fabulous salary where schools don't have chalk, they don't have chairs, they don't have benches, they don't have blackboards. So how can you be a Christian by your own admission and yet be the greatest exploiters of your societies and of a hoi polloi that is ordinary folks who have no food to eat, you have nothing to wear, you have hardly fitting clothes, and no jobs in the country, no creation. I mean, you're being paid to provide service. So your idea should be attracting and making a peaceful society so people can come in and bring investment. No society can make it nowadays without external capital investment in your society, in your country. But who is fighting? Who is doing that? No, they're fighting for egos. And I think that's the tragedy of this society.
The tragedy of this society. And
self-aggrandizement. Okay. How can I get more for myself? How can I get my pocket lined?
So you believe the religious community, they are not playing their role as it relates to putting leaders on the rightful path to move the country? Is that what you say?
Well, I'll let you answer that, because look at the bishop who recently put a Methodist minister out of his parish because he spoke against homosexualism. You think that's the role of a bishop?
The bishop was clear that he did not expel or he did not suspended the he did not suspend the pastor.
Yeah, he was clear in his
because of homosexuality. He was suspended based on some misunderstanding within the church, but he was not suspended based on his stand against.
It shows you the double tongues of religious people. They're politicians, so they know how to wiggle the ways out. Now, if you got 500 or 300 members, and they all say one thing, that the pastor was expelled for this cause, will you listen to one person because he is bishop? In truth finding, you look at where the facts lead you, where the evidence lead you, not what people say. People can say anything.
So the bishop is saying anything? Because the bishop
Well, I'm telling you what the people say. The people even went to the court at this new market, Omega Market. They have a court there. The one there protesting, and the judge came outside and told them to carry the protest on the other side of the street. They were going to deal with judicial matters. So I'm telling you what the people say. All the things that he had done, why wasn't he let go? Why wasn't he written a letter until he went that Sunday and preached against homosexualism? Okay, so it's not what the bishop says, it's what the facts say. And the facts say because he stood up against homosexualism, he was let go.
People now been wondering, they've been asking question, where is Dr. Murray? He has served the Liberian people. He served in the legislature. 2005, he was elected by the people of District 10. Where is he? He has lost from the Liberia politics. Where are you now?
I'm a private citizen, as I said. I started First Associates, which is a consultancy. I've been out of the country doing my consultancy work. I've come back. I've worked for government and corporate and private individuals. I started a group, African Religion, which is to seek our own understanding of where our ancestors were before the coming of the colonists, before the coming of the Americo-Liberians, of whom I'm a part, before the coming of the Muslims. We were here, we were worshiping God, we were pouring libation to our ancestors. And we were saying that we should do 4 good things every day as a male who's come into self-consent, knowing who you are. A female should do 3 good things every day for a perfect stranger without any expectation of being repaid. We started a group. We put it on Facebook. We have 105,000 plus persons who are our followers from around the world. I'm doing something. I don't have to be in politics as if it's my mom's house or my father's house or my father's right. What I have to do is to serve my people, and I think that's service.
I'm concerned when you left, before you left the position, did you contest for the second time?
I contested second time. Yes, I contested.
How was it like?
It's a right for every Liberian citizen who has studied his civics to know that he has the right to serve.
Okay. So we have had several elections.
Mm-hmm.
You were part of the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf government, where you served as representative for District Number 1 in 2005.
No, I served in her administration, but
okay.
I was elected on the CDC ticket.
Okay, so, and she also served this country for 12 years.
Yeah.
The CDC that you won on, they also served for 6 years. And currently we are under another unity party government led by His Excellency Joseph Newman Boyka. Can you give us your view, your analysis on their leadership role? Though President Boyka just assumed office, but let's talk about Ellen Johnson Sirleaf leadership and that of the 6 years of former President George Weah.
Ellen Johnson Sirleaf came in with the goodwill of the Liberian people. This was the first time in Africa that an African nation was electing a female to serve as his chief magistrate, his head of government, his commander-in-chief, his head of state. And along with that, a lot of goodwill came in from the international community. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf had 17 concessions of almost, $17 billion. And most of these signings brought in millions of dollars. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf served well for the first 3 years. The second 3 years, she went into a kind of stupor. And the second 6 years, her son ruled the government along with her sister.
Which one of the sons?
The only sons I would know. Ellen took her son. I used to go there the first term after I left Weah, because Weah decided that he was going to support Ellen Johnson's government. That's how he got together with Elijah Sear, Edward Ford, and Alex Tyler to remove Edwin Snow. Mm. It just happens that I was third in line, so I had to preside. I was not a part of his removal. Okay. Of course, he thought I was. He sued me, etc. But the second term, Robert Sirleaf was the de facto prime minister of Liberia. He would determine what happened. I remember she had put me on a board at NASCOP, and DeWitt von Bomus would put money aside outside of the budget of NASCOP, paying the people pension. And he would do what he wanted to do. When you asked him, he said, this is not a legislature. And eventually, he wrote to the president, and he and Robert Sirleaf had me removed off the board. Because I was asking questions about monies. Like, for instance, when the election was coming around 2017, he gave money to Unity Party, he gave money to Liberty Party, and he gave money also to CDC, Weah. So that whichever group won, he, von Bomus, will remain in office.
In his position.
Mm. And he did. Even up to now, he's remained, because he did the same thing in 2023. So that's the kind of government we're running here. When you ask me about Weah was completely absent by his presence from the political scene. Because he himself said, if people ask me to come and do this for them and sit down here for them, people ask me, he said it. If you're a journalist, you just go back in the records. I mean, you have major events happening, people dying, people getting missing. If one person gets killed in America with over 300 million a year, the president speaks to it. You have all these people working in the government as auditors and editors, and they get missing. And Weah doesn't say a thing. And there was one crisis after another. So let the Liberian people speak. I think we like suffering, because many people voted. He almost won again. See?
Now,
in respect to Boyka is here. He's just starting. I think it would be unfair, having inherited we as government, to make an objective analysis of boycott in 10 months, January to November.
Mhm.
So let's wait and see. I think there will be enough time, ample time, to see how he performs. At least there seems to be a little calm in the city.
Okay.
I mean, first, it appeared as if there was gangsterism running the country. You couldn't walk down the street, my brother. These guys were running after you in the daylight. These unfortunate youth, aka Zokos, etc.
Have you seen much progress from the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf to the George Manawia? Have you seen significant progress in the infrastructure development for Liberia? In the
what kind of infrastructure you see?
In the economy of Liberia.
So soft infrastructure, the hard infrastructure, nothing. We did a few roads, and that was it. Tell me what infrastructure that you can name that he did. The Ellen Johnson Sirleaf complex was done by the Chinese. What he did, he named it after Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. The park in Bentall was done by Ellen's regime, Christine Norma, who was the daughter of the late President Talbot. He went and they named it in his honor. So I don't know what infrastructure that we had done. Whether it's soft infrastructure or hard infrastructure.
You ran on his party ticket.
Not his party?
You ran on the CDC ticket.
I won on CDC party, which he also ran
former
on.
President Weah was the political leader.
Yes.
What have been your advice at the time he was president? Did you send any messages to him advising him on some of his governance culture?
Well, I was not in his party again.
So after you won, you left the party?
Not after I won, I left the party. Weah left his party. Weah decided that he would join Ellen Johnson Sirleaf when we were trying to get a CDC candidate to support Edward Ford. He himself called me and told me I should support Edward Ford. And Edward Ford was a candidate chosen by a united party. So he left. I was trying to defend CDC by myself. That is why when Edwin Snow called me to go and join him at the Centennial Pavilion, I did not go. But people like Rufus Newell had already sold out CDC, and Mr. Weah had already sold out CDC. So how can you be on one side when everybody is on the other side? The late Hannah Brent, who became a senator for Monterey County, went and told people that she knows me, I'm a cousin, and I went out of my head before just to support Weah's agenda. She's under the ground today, and I'm older than her. When you do wicked things, there's a power that sits high and looks low and vetoes the schemes of evil men. All that we're doing will be held responsible, either in this life or another life.
What role opposition should play in joining government to better the life of the people?
You don't have to play any role in joining government.
Opposition should not play a role
in joining the government. You have a political party is a constitutional creature. Mm-hmm. You have the right to exist. You have the right to challenge the existing political structure. And you have the right to show an alternative vision of what you think society ought to be and should be. But you don't have any prerogative, any right to join them. A British parliamentarian said the opposition is to oppose. That's what it said, opposition. Now, it's not being a destructive critic. That's not what I mean. Mm. I mean that you should be very clear, hold the feet of the government to the fire so they can serve the people better. That is why you were elected, not on their ticket, but on the other ticket. So I don't see any reason why anyone should support if you are opposition. But the opposition in Liberia is easily co-opted. Right now, where's the opposition in this saga in the House? It's so moral. There's a confusion as to where CDC stands, where CDC doesn't stand. You have, for instance, Kofa, Fanatic Kofa. I think he came as an independent because he had a lot of money. He wanted to become speaker, and so he joined the CDC. They made him speaker.
He came from the Liberty Party background.
Okay, Liberty Party.
Later on joined the CDC.
Okay, he came from Liberty, but he was not. He was not sedition.
The speaker.
The thing is, he was not sedition, and he realized he couldn't win it on the Liberty Party background. But you have Thomas Fowler, who is also sedition. Why are they at loggerheads? Why are they at polarities? Because one has felt, or the other has felt, that it's in his interest to be on the other side. And so as the chaplain of the house said, and Jesus said unto them, let us go over on the other side. So Representative Fowler came over on the other side. But if they were really opposition, they would be together.
So we would talk about what is happening at the House of Legislature, the 55th National Legislature. We're going to talk about that. But let me also ask you this. With the 10th month or 11th month in office of President Boyka, have you seen some new policies, formulation of policy, implementing policy?
Government is not an event. Government is not a point, it's a line. It is a process. You raised that question earlier. I say it's a process, and the time is too short to see where we're going to go. Let's give us 24 months or 36 months.
Have you seen some mistakes from the 10th month, within the 10th month? Have you seen some mistakes from the current government?
Well, I'm not looking for mistake. I'm looking for progress. If mistakes arise, then I point them out.
But I'm asking whether you have seen any mistakes, since indeed you want progress.
Yes.
But in the progress, there should be some mistakes. Have you seen any of it?
Well, as I told you, first of all, I feel a sense of calm. Under the old government, every night you wonder whether somebody's going to come and pound on your door. I'm not talking about police. I'm talking about these so-called Zogos. There was just chaos in the country because there was not a decisive stand on what was going on. And they said, we will not have this. This will not happen in Liberia. There seems to be order. Drive on the street. See the police at the order that's at red light. First, it was chaos in driving, or even as a pedestrian.
Under the CDC government.
Under the previous government. So there's been some order. The confusion that arose in the Liberian Drug Enforcement Administration, I can't attribute that to the administration per se. I can only say that two individuals with egos bigger than their abilities clash, and the government was able to arrest it and suspend them. And it looks like the suspension has become a firing. And maybe it was good for the Liberia Drug Administration, Drug Enforcement Administration. So we're having a conversation here. I don't see any that I will point to right now, but I think there's a possibility to do better than the last.
People have worked in government, and the issue of transparency, accountability, audit. Have you seen that happening in a previous government, to audit and investigate individuals who are engaged?
There was a lot of audits during the first administration of Ellen's. They had a gentleman called John Molo, and they never implemented anything. Even the Truth and Reconciliation Commission had recommended that Ellen and others be banned for 25 years. Ellen said that's just an opinion. That's an opinion. She still ran and she won. So when you have political power or state power, you tend to violate all the rules of decorum and order and transparency, etc. That's what governments do. If you want to compare, look at Trump, indicted for 32 felony convictions, felony. But he still became president. That's just how the world is.
Mm. So you talk about accountability. There were several audit reports from the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf government, and now you have the current government that wants to be strict in the implementation of doing an investigation and prosecuting these people. How should they start? Where can they start from?
But they already started. That is the reason why Senator Prince Johnson is alienated from the government. He said, why do they want to have an economics court, an economics crime court, and war crimes court? Why? He was one of the persons who helped bring the government into existence. Mm-hmm. So the government is trying, but you see, government is not dictatorship. It's not authoritarianism, it's democracy. So he has to navigate very perilous waters in achieving his end. If not, he will find himself alienated and he will have no support. Do you understand what I'm saying? Mm. Boyka alone cannot run the government. The executive branch has to have the other two branches. If he goes after everybody in both sides, what he has to do is to make sure that he stops the hemorrhaging, the bleeding, and then try to correct and make sure you set standards so that it will not be repeated in the past. Okay. And this has to be done through some deterrence by having people who have committed some of the worst crimes arrested and prosecuted. And I think, the very first month, he tried to have the economics crimes court and the war crimes court. And there was a lot of people, even in his own government, who rose up against him saying it's too early, witch hunting, etc.
Now, there have been several audits report, right? And the Liberians are saying there have been no prosecution. With all of the evidence gathered, right? There have been no prosecution. What do you think is the cause? What do you think is the major reason for which these citizens are saying there have been no prosecution by the government?
But I just told you that the thing is a process. You expect that this government would have prosecuted people when people from 2005 have not been prosecuted? I told you that they tried to institute a court. So people who are most responsible for the death, for the looting, for the gouging, the King Kongs of the economic crimes in the country can be brought to books. Look at Sam Tue. When he realized that the bell was going to toll, he left the country. They put a red alert and they got in touch with the international police. And he came back, but he set up himself so that he got a very soft landing. Whereas the former Chief Justice of Liberia, the former senator, the former head of the Governance Reform Commission was handcuffed and carried to jail. But he avoided that. And I understand that's one of the reasons why Zako, who was head of immigration, has been suspended. So there are all kinds of panoply of power that control things. So we are hoping that before long, some of these audit reports coming from the old regime would be vetted.
Should the audit start with from the 6-year government of CDC, or should extend or start from the Ellen Johnson
You
Sirleaf?
start with what you're able with. CDC had the opportunity. We had said that he was going to protect President Sirleaf. He said it from his own mouth. Nobody's put it in his mouth. So if he chose not to audit the government and this government wants to audit his government, why should I tell him to go back to J.J. Roberts? Why should I tell Boycott to go to J.J. Roberts? When the immediate past regime is the one you start with, then you can go further.
Let's come to the issue about the War Crimes Code, and then we move to this speaker issue, constitutional stuff and this and that. Where are you? Should we establish a War and Economic Crimes Code? Should the government establish the War and Economic Crimes Code?
What do the people want? What did they do for Sierra Leone? How did they help Sierra Leone overcome its crisis? I know one thing, they named the 10 poorest countries in the world. Liberia is the 9th. They named the countries with the lowest IQ, intelligent quotient. Liberia is the 2nd. Sierra Leone beats us. They named the countries with the lowest index, educational index. Liberia is high on the list. So we need to prioritize other things. One Philip Plainwell did an analysis on the educational system in his country. And he showed how bankrupt we are. You have teachers who are teaching up to the 11th grade, but they cannot pass the 6th grade math test. And they're teaching math. And he went to 300 schools throughout Liberia, from Monrovia to Nimba. And everywhere he went, there was a woeful situation. That is the tragedy of Liberia's situation. So when you ask me whether we should have a war crimes code or economics crimes code, this is something that has to be done in a survey. Where do Liberians put the priorities? You had 250,000 persons here, according to the UN, who died from the Civil War. You had 900,000 who died in the Rwanda genocide. They used other methods to solve the problems. They used the exchange of cola, families. This thing happened 10, 20 years ago. Zanzan Kabat said that if you want to go into this war crimes code, you should consider it like dog feces. When you stir dog feces, a lot of things will show up because so many people are involved and so many people it will implicate. Will that destabilize the country or will it bring impunity to an end? Charles Taylor has been taken out of here. He was considered the one who brought it. Samuel Doe was the mean person. He took tribalism to a level never before seen in Liberia, not even when the American Liberians were ruling. He brought his tribesmen from Ivory Coast. He didn't even trust the crowns from Grangide and put them in the executive mansion and sent them out at night to slaughter people. He's gone. Taylor is removed. So who are you really trying to go after? Prince Johnson says during war, bad things happen. We had a war here. They had a war in America, Civil War. How many hundreds of thousands of persons died? So you do a survey and let the Liberian people give you the impression as to what they want.
The TRC talks about the president has to apologize to the Liberian people. There should be a town hall meeting where victims and perpetrator will sit and have a common ground. Hey, I'm sorry, I'm this. And also there should be a reparation. There should be some reimbursement to the victims. The victims should benefit a certain amount from the TRC. That has not been done. Do you think this a war and economic crime could be established with all what the TRC
and I
have
told
said?
you what has to be done. You got a very poor country. This is one of the poorest countries in the world. Who will make the reparation? What do you get money from to make this reparation? Everything is not resolved by money. Just saying hello, sorry. And you got to start by apologizing to those families of the 13 people that you took on the pole and just shot because of rampant corruption, violation of human rights, misuse of public office. Tell me, since those people built all this infrastructure and built Liberia and fought the French and the British from taking over Liberia and dividing it, since that happened, what infrastructure have they done? How have they improved the civil rights of Liberians? How have they ceased to abuse the office? So we have to be realistic about it. If we want to waste our time trying to pursue them, then do a survey. Let the people tell you what they want.
Okay. Now, today's issue, Liberia is in another crisis, especially at the House of Legislature, where some lawmakers, let me just say, simple majority wants the removal of House Speaker J. Funati Kofa, and he saying the law he should be given due process. You were in the 2005 legislature where Speaker Snow was removed. Can you give us your own analysis when it comes to the speaker removal? Were you in support, firstly, of the removal of Snow?
I was the presiding officer, and if you go to the Liberian Law Review, you'll see a case there. Speaker Elvin Melvin Snow Jr. versus Kettehkumuehn Murray and some members of the House of Representatives. That is enshrined in law. He decided to sue me. He didn't decide to sue Ellen. He didn't decide to sue Jenikai Tyler, Elijah Sear, or Edward Ford. He decided to sue me. Because why? I was the presiding officer who refused to go to him. For whatever reason, I decided that if there were charges perfected against him, he carried Lebanese, he carried some people he called Snow, he carried, what is his name? He traveled to Dubai and carried Sam Wulu. He carried all kinds of people and called them as members of the House. He also tried to send George Sylvester Molba to Gambia to start a relationship with the People's Republic of China when the government had a one China policy rather. So they leveled these charges against him and asked him to come. So he will face them. He says he's not going to come. At the time, some renovation was going on at the Capitol building. United States Aid for International Development decided that they will renovate the building after all these long years of disrepair. And so we had to find a place to meet. He went and wrote the president to use the Centennial Pavilion. But the law says that the two houses must meet in the same city. So the Senate went and found a place to meet at the Unity Conference Center and left another place for us, the main audience. So the law also says that the two houses must meet in the same city. And one house cannot meet for more than 5 days without the other. So we decided to go to Unity Conference Center. There was a question as to whether Virginia was a city. So we did some research and found out that it became a city in 1979 when the OU conference came here. But to make sure that we were not out of step, we reaffirmed that law. So it means that we're meeting in the city. We asked Edwin Melvin Snow to come so that he would face the people. He said, no, we should go and sit under him. Forget about the Senate. He's Speaker. At the time, he had 12 people who were following him. We had 46. There were 63 members those days of the House. Some were that traveled, some had died, some were in sick bush. So we got 46 over 12. Where's the majority? It's with us. Edwin Melvin Snow was able to go to the House, the Supreme Court, by which means, whatever means, and convince the Supreme Court that we had violated his rights. So the Supreme Court sent an order to us that we should return to status quo ante. I'm doing the real history of this. You hear those guys talking on Spoon TV.
And that's why, and that is exactly what the Liberian people want to hear. That's why we hear to you.
Well, right. I hear them talking, calling my name on Spoon all day. They don't call me. I don't know, they think that those guys are smarter because they can talk. No, but I have the facts. I'm still living. I'm still coaching. I'm still having my mind. When they send the order to us, the opinion of the Supreme Court is not law, but it's construed as law. So in order for us to show that we are not against law and order or rule of law, they said we should return to status quo ante because we had removed Edwin Snow illegally. So I ordered the chief clerk to write a letter to Mr. Snow asking him to come to us so we can remove him legally, since we had removed him illegally. There was no way he could prevail. Just like Fanati, there's no way he will prevail.
Was there a letter sent at that time to the presiding officer telling him this is the complaint we have against you?
We wrote him several times, he knows.
In order to recuse himself.
We're asking, he had to come. You can't. We wrote him a letter and told him these are the charges which are preferred or perfected against you.
The current speaker say he has not seen that from his colleagues. They have not sent him letter of complaint.
He may say that. You send it to the last address. That's what the law says. The man's house burned down. So he has to make himself available. When you hear he's in room, you hear he's somewhere else. How do you find him to serve him with a letter? The chief clerk of the house will give the letter to the guy who is there, and he's supposed to take the letter. What's his name? Anyway, the guy who is protecting the house.
The sergeant at arms.
Sergeant at arms. He would take the letter. And so we gave him the letter. Edwin Melvin Snow house was known where he lived in Painesville, and the letter was taken to him. Edwin Melvin Snow, instead of coming to answer the question, Edwin Melvin Snow decided that for peace, he will resign. And so he sent a letter resigning. When he resigned, we had to go to election. I tried to run. We had sent Eugene Nangbe and others here. I spent several $1,000s on them. Eugene Nangbe, this guy who was on the other night, Akaras Gray and others. They said, no, this decision as to who will be speaker was made not here, it was made in America. The man said we should support Edward Ford. That's one the president supported. Because the $500,000 are allegedly taken from LPRC coffers by Henry Greaves Jr. to give to legislators to sign for the signature. It was all orchestrated by Ellen. And so when he sent a letter that he's resigned from the House, the majority said, well, this is what we wanted. We will not pursue him, he's our member, for the violations he made. And when I try to run, we are opposing me again. It was not the first time opposing me. We'll go into that another time. My relationship with CDC.
So this is it. Article 39 talks about the legislature of the Constitution. It talks about adopting rules in line with the Constitution and 2/3 to expel a member for a cause. But it also talks about due process. All of the rules that are going to be crafted by the House of Legislature should go with due process. Did your leadership at the time afford Speaker Snow a due process?
Well, young man, you have not been listening. I said we asked him to come to face the charges.
He did not.
If he chooses not to come, don't forget, our house is not a court. We do not pursue the same judicial processes of procedures and substantive law. That's not, this is a fulcrum. The national legislature is the fulcrum for politics in the country. That's the House of Elders. We make our decision. We are independent of the judiciary. We could tell the judiciary, we heard what you said, we don't want to listen to you. And they can't do a damn thing to us. But we have to prove ourselves that we are law-abiding too. Because that's the court of national redemption. That's the ultimate court of ultimate national redemption or adjudication. So we have to follow the Supreme Court in that respect. If they are, like recently, they asked the justice in chamber, and the justice in chamber was very wise. They asked the justice in chamber to stay all order. How can you pass a ruling that will stop the House from meeting? You'll be held in contempt and you will be impeached. So this wise lawyer who's sitting on the Supreme, this justice, he recused himself. That's not his business. Y'all go do your politics over there.
Okay.
But most people don't know that. So they just go and say, oh, that man, they didn't do anything. You got to go back to him. He didn't say anything.
What is
He's not supposed to say anything.
What is 2/3?
Oh, listen. When he was he elected by 2/3?
According to the speaker,
listen to me. I know that section.
Let me just.
I know that section. Oh man, I can get it on here. I'm asking you whether the Speaker Kofa, when Speaker Kofa was he elected by 2/3? No. So once you have the majority, you can refuse to meet with him. The majority of the House's members have refused to sit on his gavel. That should be enough. Now, yesterday DJ Blue went there, and they were 34. That makes 35.
They were 43.
44.
So two persons crossed over yesterday.
DJ Blue said he getting 3 persons. DJ Blue crossed when they were 45 or 44.
So currently they are 45.
Okay.
Because the 2 persons who added themselves yesterday.
Once they're the majority, because the rules.
So there are rules also.
The rules must be what? The rules must be in concert with the Constitution.
With the Constitution.
And what is the rule? Majority. Where it means specifically 2/3 can fluctuate because it depends on how many members you have.
But according to their rules here, from what the speaker quoted, he said 37 can elect him and 49 can remove him.
But he can't tell you what to be done. He is not the only person who can interpret the Constitution. He was not elected by 49. The same group of people that elected him can remove him. But where you have the majority of the people refusing to accept him as speaker, that should be very clear to him. He's not an oligarch. He's not a dictator. He's not imperial. He's first among equals. He didn't come from Mount Olympus. He didn't come from under the sea in Grand Cru with all that power that Kettehkumuehn Murray had. where they slap the rock open, and fire come from there. No, he came from amongst us. He was elected. And the majority of the people in the house said they don't want you. Why is he forcing it? You think it will change? It will not change. It will only become worse. People will get tired and leave him. It happened to Alex Staller. That's my friend. It was 6 months. Edwin Snow and were fighting. He had a man who moved me. That movie. Staller proved himself to be a man.
Because I was coming to ask you how many months or days it took to remove Speaker Snow.
Snow was less than 2 months.
Less than 2 months.
He had 12 people behind him, counting himself. I had 46 or 48. How can you take that? 12, 24, 36, 40. We were 4 times double. At the time, it was 60, 63. We're not trying to remove him. We're trying to ask him to come and explain himself, how he carried these people, how did Sam Wulu become a member of the House. Yeah, he carried him as representative according to the list. People got all the things. Why he sent Sylvester Mulba and another guy to Banjul.
So you believe what the current lawmakers, the majority, are saying? They are not calling for his removal, but to recuse himself and to answer some of the counts that have been labeled against him. That's what you believe.
Against him. Yes, let him come. It's not what I'm thinking. If somebody says, this is what I want, you had to come here to interview me. If you stayed over there and said, I want to interview you, but you had to find. I said, I'm here. I give you my address. You wouldn't come. And he said, but it's hard to catch that mail. I'm a former lawmaker, a former teacher, a former professor, philosopher at the university. It would be hard to find him. You just concocting ideas in your own mind that have nothing to do with reality. All he has to do is to come and say, okay, yeah, I am. I recuse myself from presiding. You can't be presiding and then you are the accused. It doesn't happen anywhere in the world. Okay. Even the president, when they accuse the president, he's supposed to be impeached. He will not be president at that time. He'll be the accused. But he said no, he knows the law more than anybody else.
So the speaker being accused, he should now go to the majority to respond.
He should recuse himself and go and present himself to his colleagues to give a cogent, logical, transparent explanation on these accusations leveled against him.
What happens if he's not found guilty?
Then he will be returned to his speakership. The same day, they will just move and say, okay, Mr. Speaker, we regret whatever has happened, but this had been our perception, and we had to satisfy our curiosity.
What role the executive should play in this entire process? Because people are now saying some ministers are responding to the majority bloc instead of the speaker who is recognized by Constitution. You believe
he's
the
not
executive
recognized by Constitution. He recognized by Constitution after his members, after his colleagues have confirmed him. He didn't come from someplace like the Chief Justice. He's a constitutional creature. But this guy is a product of the House, which is confirmed by the Constitution.
So you believe it is his privilege, not his right to be a speaker? Do you believe?
What do you mean right? Who has right? Everybody, every one of those 73 persons have right. They have a right to vie for the speakership. If the colleagues want him, it's a question of whether your colleagues want you. You're not getting the message. The colleagues have to want you. If they don't want you, then you're out. They do not want him. The majority, it should be very clear, crystal to him, that he recuses himself, offers himself for vetting the issues perfected against him. And if he is not found guilty, they will vote again.
They will vote again to reinstate him.
No, to see whether he has answered the question
properly,
honestly, fairly. And if he wins, say, oh, and they will reinstate him. And that's what we call Edwin Snow to do. The Supreme Court did not say we were wrong. They said we were wrong in the manner that he was removed. And actually, he was not removed. But I was not a lawyer. We got lawyers for ourselves, Michael Wright and Francis Galawulu and others. But the Supreme Court had made up their mind. Because we had not removed him. He didn't even give us the opportunity. We say he should come forward, that these charges have been leveled against him. We're asking him to come and explain and vindicate himself. And he said he won't. And you know, that's a political house.
Okay. So finally, before we conclude this entire interview, what is your message to Liberians? What is your message to the government, to President Weah, in terms of building the country?
Well, I don't have message to President Weah. If you say President Boyka.
President Boyka, sorry.
In union strong, success is sure. We cannot fail. With God above, our rights to prove, we will, no, we must, over all prevail. This mantra, which is part of our national anthem, tells us that we have to work together. We must serve one another. We must love one another. The whole country, as I foresee it, every house, every building on Tubman Boulevard, on Broad Street, are owned and occupied by Lebanese. Every dry goods store is occupied and owned by Fulani. Every spare part for cars and pickups are owned and operated by Nigerians, especially Igbo. Every large transport truck is owned and operated by Konyanka, not Liberian Mandingos. Liberians only own these small shops where they're selling this NICO product, which is made of alcohol that will destroy your liver, and where they have these bars, barbecuing chicken and whatnot. We have nothing in our own country. It's a very sad commentary. There is no hope for us. With all the 1,000 graduates from the Business College of the university every year, we have no businesses. 76% of all Liberians want to travel abroad and leave this country. So they've already declared the non-loyalty to the country. A survey, you can go on the net and see it. I need to be speaking to you, not to Boyka. Boyka has padded his resume, he was president. Where I said, if you move me into your business, at least I've been president. When you call J.J. Roberts' name, you'll call my name. It takes a certain kind of ego to want to be president of Liberia or president of any nation. The thing is, how can we educate ourselves, to love ourselves, to care for ourselves and for one another? We have not moved ourselves after 200 years from the mold of tribalism to nationalism. So perhaps we need to create a territorial rather than a nation state where these tribes will thrive and compete in a healthy way with one another. We recognize the territoriality of Liberia rather than trying to say we are all Liberians, because many people will first tell you, I'm a Grand Crew man, I'm a Kissy man. They have not recognized the fact that they are Liberians.
Tribalism.
It's tribalism. Nepotism is when you use tribalism to advance your own kind. But if you go to Freeport, somebody called me. All on the steps now, they got the mat there, they're praying because the guy who's in charge of the Freeport is a Mandingo. So he decided to carry all his clients and kins and kith there. And without respect to other people who are not Muslim, they're praying all over the place. You got a boss man say, you pray anywhere around here. That's where they're chanting now, Allah will give you this country one day.
Well, you still want to go back to government?
Well,
you would still want to serve your country?
I don't think this is a question that is mine to answer. If I want to go back in my own right, I will run. If someone recognizes my ability to serve and proffer me that, I will consider where they want me to go.
Okay. And where the best place you want to go?
Anywhere I can serve well, with integrity, transparency, commitment, dedication, and love for my country. But we have not learned to love one another. The four tribes that cling to one another too strongly. The Kettehkumuehn is too tribalistic. He has not been able to become a Liberian yet. The Mandingo man, he is too loyal to his ethnicity. He doesn't know how to include somebody else. He would prefer giving the operation of his appendicitis to a butcher than to a surgeon of a different race or different tribe. The Crown people and the last group, the Americo-Liberians, they still think that they are special after 200 years. They have not rid themselves of this slave mentality. Same thing they did to them, they still think of themselves as separate and distinct. Until we can graduate from these and bring us in as a nation, as one people, the next alternative is to create a territory and let these people thrive on their own, elect their own tribal leaders. They have a kind of mixture of that in Nigeria, you know.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for talking to us for this interview. Hope we have another time to talk on other issues concerning Liberia and Africa as a whole. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for your very critical questions. I had to drink a bottle of water to be able to just deal with your questions. Okay. Thank you very much from ku-wor TV and Eagle Talk Show.
Well, folks, so thank you so much for watching, and you just listened to Dr. Kettehkumuehn Murray, and he's a
Murray, M-U-R-R-A-Y.
That's Murray, and he's also a former lawmaker of Liberia. He served District Number 1, Moserado County. District Number 3. Moserado County. So again, thank you so much. Please follow, like, and share. My name is Wil Wilfred Duosi. I want to say thank you again.
Thank you.